Aloha mai kako. You are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Hi everyone, it's Syrian Girl. I want to talk to you about your biometric identity, body scanners, and the InfoWars opt-out and film the TSA week. Now, we've already heard a lot about the radiation concerns involved with those body scanners that they have installed in airports, and also about the privacy concerns that people have because they basically take and store nude pictures of people, and that includes children as well, which is especially bad. But however, I want to bring to light one of what I believe is the biggest concerns with the body scanners, and that is that they record and store people's biometric IDs. Now, your biometric identity is unique to you, like fingerprints, iris scans, the sound of your voice, but also the dimensions of your face and your body. And nobody has the same dimensions. So the public has been told that these body scanners are for security reasons, that they are to find out if people are concealing weapons in airports. However, instruments for that already exist, which is the X-ray scanner. And in fact, those body scanners are marketed as biometric data collection and storage devices for those in the know, for those actually buying the machines. Um, and the reason this is especially bad is because it's basically microchipping people without the microchip. We know that the New World Order has always dreamed of microchipping people at birth and taking away their civil liberties and privacy. But people just were not willing to subject themselves to this. So the way around it was to use people's bodies as the microchip itself. And this is because, well, when the RFID inserted in the microchip will have an exact identity and tracking device, your body
Make
becomes...
sure that someone is watching so they can comply with all of these rules so that they don't get their licenses revoked. And the band members are not allowed to have any drinks on the bar either. And when the kitchen is open, all of the laws completely change. So I think on a slow night, well, what I was told is the bar owner will choose, if the night is slow, just to close early, because otherwise he has to pay all of the security. So he'll just close, losing any chance of making any money at all, because so if they just cannot make a profit that way. It's yeah, they just don't want to incur the cost of all the security. So
wow, can someone remind me? Are we still in prohibition? I can't remember. After that list,
and you can't get drunk in the bar on Maui. You cannot be drunk, or the bar owner will be sued. And yeah,
it makes me wonder if the cost of going to a bar is higher on Maui. I mean, I don't go to many bars. Phil, aren't you the resident expert? No,
I don't drink either, but I know it is very expensive to buy a glass of wine or beer.
I mean, if you're paying for the security at the bathrooms, at each bathroom, and the exits and all that, obviously
it's cheap. It's cheaper at home in every state.
Yeah, right.
That's a good point.
Right, but it does all of that cost rolls down to the customers in every way. It's bad for business.
Well, if you think about the main engine of our economy in Hawaii is tourism, and obviously liquor plays a part in that. I mean, the tourists want to go here to escape.
You also can't bring liquor on the beach, too. I mean, it's not enforced, thank goodness, but it's or selectively enforced.
Right.
But that's
relatively recent.
Is that recent?
Changed that, yeah.
And I would like to clarify that it's not required, all of this security, but if one of these officers comes in and sees any of these laws being not violated, then they're in trouble. So really, they don't have to have all those, but it behooves them to hire all of these people to keep an eye on things so they don't lose their license and therefore lose their business.
I wonder if there's some restaurants that have kind of said, well, the only way we can make it is to not sell liquor anymore. Or I'm sure that's what's happened.
Denny's used to sell liquor when they first opened up and they closed their bar.
Yeah.
So
Getting a liquor license is huge. I hear it's huge to get a liquor license.
I don't drink anymore, but I wanted to buy alcohol after 10:50 at night. You can't buy alcohol in a supermarket after 10:50 at night.
10:50.
10:50. Even though I was sober, hadn't had anything to drink, I wanted to get. I had to go out at 6 o'clock in the morning to get the beer before I went on the boat. I wasn't going to drink any of the alcohol. I hadn't had one sip of alcohol, and I could not buy beer.
But you could have if you would have got there before 10:50.
Right, but I was.
That's arbitrary.
It's arbitrary. I'm sober. I'm not drunk. I can't buy alcohol when I want to buy alcohol, and it's a type of prohibition. At least they sell in the supermarkets here. There are some states that have blue laws. You can't buy beer on Sundays, and you can't buy beer on Sundays. And some states they have liquor stores right next to the supermarket, and it always perplexed my mind why they had restrictions like that. And it's because they can't sell beer. It has to be in a state-run store.
And I think the law is 11 o'clock. It's just that the markets and liquor stores don't want to run afoul of the liquor board.
If you're in line at 10:50, but somebody in front of you has a lot of items and it's 11:01, then they just cut it off at 10:50 just to play it safe, so they don't have that happen. So.
Okay, well, unless you have something else to say, that is our number 4 pick is liquor laws.
5.
Our number 5 pick is liquor laws. Okay. Okay, number 4. Now, if you're just tuning in, this is the Maui Liberty Network's top 10 list of laws that hurt business in Hawaii. And warning, 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 we're talking about taxes here, so don't doze off. We're going to try to get through this real quick. I guess 3 big taxes that hurt business are GE tax, the TAT tax, and the income tax. And the GE tax is a small tax. It's only 4%, but it's on every single transaction there is. So if you buy something and then you sell it to someone, then you use it for something, and then the whole line, whenever you're exchanging it, you have to pay that 4%. So then it piles up and it snowballs into a really big into an avalanche. The GE tax is just actually our state is, I think, the only state to have a tax like that, a GE tax.
If you can verify that you're selling it to somebody else, you can buy it for 0.5% rather than 4%.
I'm lost.
If you're a contractor, you're buying lumber and you're building a house and selling it to a potential homeowner,
all right,
you can pay 0.5% for the lumber or anything that you put into the house because you're going to resell it. So if it's only the ultimate consumer has to pay the entire 4%.
End user. End user, yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, that's one of those job killer taxes. And another one is the TAT tax, which is the transient accommodations tax. Basically, it's a hotel tax. And so you ask yourself, what is the biggest industry in Hawaii? Obviously, is tourism. So let's take those tourists and let's tax them. And right now, it's about 13% for hotels when you include the GE tax. Now, there's something wrong with that. When you take here's the milk and bread for our state, and let's tax it as much as possible. Obviously, less tourists will come here, and if less tourists come here and visit the hotels, then less tourists come and visit all the other things that the tourist industries. So that is really another one of those crippling taxes. And then, of course, the income tax, which varies on what income you are. For me, it's about 8%, but I did have to pay something like $9,000 or $10,000 in taxes last year just for my income, and I thought, wow, I wish I could keep that money and buy a car or something. Well, what are your opinions about taxes?
I am amazed that so many tourists still come here with as expensive as everything is and how much the rooms are, and yeah, I'm just amazed we still have as many tourists as we do.
Yes.
Because the price of food, everything is so high.
We have a tax on all food that's purchased, even fruit and vegetables at the supermarket. They have a general excise tax on everything, except incidentally newspaper. So every other product out there except the newspaper has a general excise tax.
Yeah.
I guess when they're proposing it, the newspapers didn't want that to happen. They have they had a lot of influence. I wonder why.
Prescription drugs are exempted too.
They are? Prescription drugs?
One thing about the GE tax that I really didn't realize, I was paying that tax for doing business for so many years. And then one time because you figure what you sold and then, your total amount, and you put the 0.04167 on there, and you get that total. But then when you pay the tax, you pay it on that total instead of on the amount of goods and services you provided. Which I thought, I must be doing something wrong here. This can't possibly be right. I think I've been paying too much tax all these years. So I called a friend of mine who knows more about that stuff, and she said, no, that's the way it works. That's the way it works.
It's like a double tax.
It's a double tax.
Double, triple, quadruple, on up the multiples. And you kind of ask, well, why do we need taxes? Why do we need, for example, an income tax? Obviously, we need the income tax. I mean, it would be almost unthinkable to get rid of it in Hawaii. But then you also have to ask, well, many states don't have an income tax. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, all without an income tax.
New Hampshire?
Oh, New Hampshire is another one? I didn't know that. And
Tennessee?
Montana.
Tennessee?
Montana does not either.
Oh, I guess
no,
I didn't know
Montana
that.
has no sales tax. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So our number 4 pick for laws that hurt business, taxes. Okay. Number 3 is the planning department. And basically, when I say planning department does come up with a lot of these kind of silly laws. But really, we're talking about any kind of silly law that's arbitrary in Hawaii about business. And the planning department has a lot of them. When it comes to a home business, the planning department creates the rules for that. So if you want to start a business in your house, they've made a rule that you and only one other person can be employed by that business. It can't be 3 people in the business, only 2. 40% of your house can be used for the business. So if you use the living room to do business work, you're not allowed to go into the garage to store something. And storing something is another thing. If you wanted to have some sort of like a sewing machine or some sort of like leather making tool, and you put it in your garage, you're trying to run a leather making thing, that's not allowed. You can only have equipment that would already have been in your house, something like a refrigerator. Like things that people have in their houses. And these are all opinions, right? And, there's so many of these kind of silly, arbitrary regulations that somebody thought was a good idea, but I think everyone in the planning department, they work really hard, and all of them making trouble. Here's an example of parking lot laws. They've got, this is a document with all the parking lot regulations. It says, a bowling alley must have 5 parking spaces for each alley. A bed and breakfast must have 1 parking space for each bedroom. Well, of course, why would a bed and breakfast not have a parking spot for its customers? And but these people think that the only way that the economy works is from a top-down view. But I think a bottom-up view works. I think people would create their own prosperity and their own great ideas themselves.
I spoke with a contractor, and he was telling me about the rules around, it's the landscape planting plan permit for parking lots. And this permit provides a means to encourage the choosing and the planting of trees. And I was told about the expense of planting trees. Every 5 spaces, you're supposed to have a tree in the big parking lots, in newer construction things. And you'll notice most parking lots that are newer you go to, there are a lot of trees. So I have a diagram for that too, and it actually shows 5 spaces a tree, 5 spaces. So that's a place a car can't park. So that's a customer that can't go in the store and spend money, and that, if you don't think that adds up pretty quickly economically, it does. Now, I know I've seen a lot of parking lots that where they don't really take up a whole space. It'll be like a diamond or a square or a circle or something, so a car still can park there. It's just that the parking spaces are a little bit smaller. But the cost of putting in that extra concrete, digging those holes, the irrigation for it, and I hear there's about a 70-some page document about as to what kind of trees you have to have. And there's shrubs for in between the buildings. There has to be shrubs if you're up against another property. And I guess this list is so complicated of what kind of trees you have. I know a small business owner that just opened a very small restaurant and had the whole thing almost done. And then the planning department didn't approve of the kind of trees that they chose, even though the guy had spent, he said, like a month trying to read the 70 pages and figure out what was the correct kind of trees and shrubs. Well, then I guess the planning department was okay with it, but the planning department is not the only people that you have to talk to. You have to have further review, or a further review may be required by the arborist committee. And the arborist committee has much power of its own.
They've got their own rules.
They've got
obviously.
their own rules.
I mean, when it comes to laws like this, you kind of think, well, it's just trees, it's just a parking lot. But really, it all adds up. All these little rules. I mean, this is just, this is just some of the rules, just a tiny fraction of the rules that they put out, and it all adds up, and it all hurts business.
Pretty much every parking lot I've been in has lots of trees in it. Whether I travel outside of the state of Hawaii, they have trees in the parking lot because customers demand it. Customers want it. It adds value to the property, and people want to add value to the property that they own. They don't want it to increase in value. So they're
right. The argument is that, well, if there was no planning department, then there would be no trees in parking lots.
There's in Houston, Texas, I read a study that they have more trees than any big city in the United States. But they have no planning department or zoning laws.
Right, right. And I believe the trees are great. I'm not saying I have anything against trees, but I do not think the government should be mandating trees in the parking lot.
I agree.
And it's just such a further expense that, again, rolls down to the end user who's buying things in that store or eating at that restaurant or whatever. It all rolls down to us. Yeah.
Okay, that was number 2, I believe.
3.
Oh, that was number 3, the planning department.
Joe and I agreed on the number 2 choice for the most harmful laws to business, and that is what has affectionately become known as Obamacare, officially named the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. This law is over 2,000 pages long, and the subsequent clarifying language and guidance has exceeded 20,000 pages so far. The law has been in existence since March of 2010, and with many of these provisions and rates are going into effect in January of 2014. The law is slated to be phased in over the span of 8 years.
So here it comes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so why does Obamacare, why does Hawaii healthcare, why does it hurt business? I mean, I can see that, yes, we've got an extra cost, but why does that hurt business?
Yeah, I don't understand. Supposedly there was, 12, I don't remember, a few million people that didn't have health care insurance. So 15 million. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so rather than just implement something by government to see that those people are insured, the entire system had to be renovated, causing a hardship to everyone, and of course small businesses that are still trying to figure out the mathematics of all this.
I think if you have a full-time employee, I mean, this is Hawaii's healthcare, right? If you have full-time employees, then you have to pay for their healthcare. Am I wrong about that?
If they're over 20 hours a week.
If they're over 20 hours, so
they'll have a lot of employees have work for 19 hours.
So a lot of employees work for 19 and a half hours, right up to the mark, and then they have to have another part-time job and another. So they're working three times as much when they could just work at one job. They've had one schedule. They could have time to see their kids, and they wouldn't have to worry about. And they could get their health care on their own without having to worry about their employer.
And this is what's happening across the whole nation. Employers are laying off millions of workers because they're dropping them down to part-time so they don't have to pay this. And it's hurting the economy. It's a disaster.
It's hurting people. It's causing
the middle class.
It's harming people. They're getting unemployed. They're unemployed. They're not working as much, and they have to get a second or a third part-time job. So
right.
It looks like, anecdotally, it looks like I'm going to effectively lose my health insurance. President Obama promised that I could keep my health insurance, except the current policy I have expires at the end of the year, and new policies are going to be issued. One that compares with mine, I'm paying a little over $400 without drug, without dental, which was okay by me. Apparently I will be compelled to have those services in the future. The policy was actually a little bit cheaper, except for the deductible. My old policy was $150. The deductible for this new cheaper policy is $6,350. So I will have to pay, and I don't understand how this dovetails with the you can't pay cash, because apparently I'm expected to pay all the way up to the $650 before the insurance will take effect.
Well, I think it boils down to nobody knows what's going on, and even the people that do, the rules are changing. So,
right.
So even the people, like you went to a meeting where they explained this, but I have a feeling they probably just learned it the day before themselves.
Well, they all said that the only constant in this bill is change, and it's just constantly changing. Yeah, I went to this 3-hour forum that the Chamber of Commerce put on, and the insurance companies came and they talked about it quite a bit. But yeah, it's definitely in flux,
I
and
guess
it will be.
I guess he kept his campaign promise then.
What was that?
It's always in change, so I guess
Change.
it's
There you go.
Right, change you can believe in.
I mean, I don't want to bash too much, because I always like to try to see what the other side of the coin is. And let me try to play devil's advocate. If healthcare were left up to the free market, then hospitals would just charge through the roof, and doctors would just charge through the roof, and insurance companies would, if anyone had a scraped knee, they'd get rid of them. And what's to say that the free market wouldn't do it worse?
But LASIK surgery is one of the few things that's not covered by any insurance plan, and they're one of the few parts of the medical business that has decreased costs. Costs are going down every single year.
It's privatized.
Well, they have to pay by cash. People are paying by cash for LASIK surgery, for eye surgery. They don't have that with almost every other form of insurance. It's covering other things except LASIK surgery. I don't know of any policy that covers LASIK surgery.
You're saying that right now we don't have a free market healthcare system as it is.
As it is, except in that one niche area.
Except for that niche area, and the niche area is improving.
Well, the costs are going down, and there has been improvements in it. So costs go down. And that's how it is in the computer industry, in the cell phone industry. Costs are going down or stay the same.
Computers are getting cheaper and cheaper.
Or the costs of the computers stay the same, but they're twice as powerful as last year's model. So you're getting better products for the same price, and the costs are going down.
I mean, I guess I have to say that when I look at the world and I look at all the miracles and the benefits that the free market provides us, you have to ask, why wouldn't this work in healthcare? And Obamacare is just the opposite of that. So.
Right. So let me go on with, there's a tax on health insurance companies. So there'll be an annual tax on health insurance companies. And that is an $8 billion tax next year. And then it goes up in 2015 to $11.3 billion. And by 2017, it will be a $13.9 billion tax, and that will definitely be passed on to the individuals. And then there is an Obamacare tax on union members and early retiree health insurance plans. This one, my brother retired from IBM when he was pretty young, like 45 or something. He'd already worked 25 years, and he's been getting insurance through IBM since. And the insurance cost of these, they're calling these Cadillac plans, are going to be taxed at 40%. That's pretty high tax there.
Yeah, you think there's very few things in the world that are taxed at 40%. Why not tax it 60%? Why not 70? Why not, you know?
And they might.
Don't give them ideas, Joe.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Delete that, edit it, cut.
There's a comparative effectiveness research fee, which will be $1 per member per year. A reinsurance program fee, which is $63 per member per year. Just the names of these fees is just, I don't know, they're pretty, I'm sure they've just really had to work hard to come up with all these
Sounds like
ideas.
a telephone bill.
Yeah. And in 2014, there will be a $2.5 billion tax on pharmaceutical companies, which will definitely affect all of us. And it's been said absolutely that more mandates, taxes, and legislative compliance will generate higher costs. And you may think you won't be affected, but you will. And my final thing is that tax compliance for Obamacare amounts to 80 million hours. The Ways and Means Committee has compiled this estimate of how many hours it will take to comply with these taxes. And based on IRS estimates, it will take nearly 80 million hours for family and businesses to comply with these taxes.
It's kind of like someone has to teach us about what the new system is. Someone has to administer the new system, and those jobs are also built into the taxes, into the cost of it. And so there's a lot of new jobs being created, except they're these
They don't
government
create any wealth. They
Yeah.
don't
Right.
bring a new medical product to the market or anything like that.
Right. Well, we'll see in 2014.
It's
So,
a quagmire.
number 2 on the laws that hurt business is Obamacare. Okay. Number 1, we can fire through this pretty quick. It is the Jones Act. The Jones Act is a shipping law that prohibits any foreign ships from traveling between American ports. So if a Hong Kong ship came to Hawaii, it could not then go on to the mainland. It would be illegal for that to happen. If a Hong Kong ship went to the mainland, it could not then stop off in Hawaii. So obviously, that's gonna, if a ship has to pick between Hawaii, or can I go to Hawaii, or should I go to the mainland, obviously they're gonna pick going to the mainland, and they skip Hawaii completely. And then whatever goods need to be shipped here overseas are double shipped here, and that raises the cost for everyone. I've read estimates that say that if the Jones Act were abolished, our shipping costs would decrease to the point where almost everything in Hawaii would be cheaper, and some things would be quite a bit cheaper. Some say as much as 30% cheaper. When you think about all the things that go into what does it take to make a business? What does it take to make a building, to make a chicken fence, to make all the things that it takes to run business? And you put a huge cost to that because of the Jones Act. That's why we put that as number 1 on our list, because it does affect every single area of our lives. Can you imagine a world, an island where everything was 30% cheaper, or a lot of things were? I mean, we might have things that are even cheaper than the mainland, if you think about
It was
it.
given up in the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express.
You try a hide and destroy a freedom man. You sick agenda, we know you anti-American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913, corrupt up in the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lisa Farr. He can see you lying